Sara Rosett is a native Texan, a USA Today best-selling author. She grew up reading and dreaming of writing books. Her stories and essays have appeared in Chicken Soup for the Military Wife Soul. I didn't know that. That's cool. Georgia Magazine, The Writer, and the Romantic Times Book Review. And Jami Albright is a born and raised Texas girl and is the multiple award-winning author of The Brides on the Run and the Small Town Royalty series. They're both sexy, swoony, and pee your pants funny. If you don't snort with laughter, then she hasn't done her job. Sara and Jami both host the Wish I'd Known Then podcast together. So that's my intro done. I will hand over to both of you to do your thing.
All right.
All right.
Well, we're excited to be here and happy to talk to everyone. It's good to see everybody.
Yeah, it's great to see you. I'm trying to find the questions that we set up on my phone. So give me a second. They went away. There you go.
I'll start out then. Okay. So we were going to just say a little bit about like who we are, but Shane's already done that. So I'll just tell you a little bit about what I write. I do mystery. I've always loved mysteries. I write now country house mysteries set in the 1920s. That's like my favorite thing to write. I start off in cozy, and I've written some kind of more classic romantic suspense, and then moved into the historicals. So that's kind of, I'm like all mystery all the time. and a little nonfiction. I do how to write a series and how to outline a cozy mystery book.
Yes, and so you have your course.
I do. It's yeah.
The cozy mystery course. Yeah. Very good. Well, I am Jami Albright, and I write romantic comedies, set in Texas mostly. I have some books out. So one of them is a book I wrote during the pandemic that is pandemic inspired, but it's not about the pandemic because there wasn't anything funny about the pandemic. So we just keep that separate. The podcast is Wish I'd Known Them for Writers, and we've been doing it 3.5 years, and we love doing it, and we love our audience, and we have great guests that really educate us and our community. So that's what we do.
Yeah. So we were going to take the questions that we ask every guest and kind of run through our responses to the question, and then kind of the majority, like what most people say in response to it. Because, kind of we have themes that come up again and again. So the first question we ask is, what is your definition of success? So do you want to go first, Jami, or do you want me to?
You go ahead.
Okay, well, I would say for me, it is being able to contribute to the family income. I wanted to make money with my books. I didn't want it just to be a hobby. And I wanted to write the kind of books that last. I want the books that I write to be around. I mean, since I'm writing country house mysteries, and my inspiration for that is like books from the 20s and 30s, like Agatha Christie. I want people, 50, 100 years from now to be able to pick up my books and enjoy them. So I hope that my books stand the test of time. So that's kind of my definition of success. And I won't know if I made that or not.
Yeah. You're just going to have to trust that you will. Yeah. Mine has changed. And we hear that a lot from a lot of our guests, because, as your career changes, your goals change. And as your goals change, then your definition of success changes. I would say for a while, my definition of success was to make a lot of money and be famous. And I sort of got that in our community, and I wasn't worldwide famous, but people did know my name. And, but then the pandemic happened, and I had a setback, and the fame kind of went away, though I'm in this community. So I'm very grateful. But, I would say now I don't have to make all the money. I just need to make enough money to do the things that my husband and I have decided that we are that are important to us, whether it's helping with the household income or helping with retirement or help family members, whatever that is. I will say that my sister passed away last October, and I haven't really written. I've just started writing again. And during the 6 months that I was with her every day, I did not write a word. And I don't regret not writing a word, because I still was making money during that time. And there's not really another business that you can be in where you're not working, but you're still making money. So I'm super grateful for this community and for indie publishing, because I was able to be there for her, and I still was able to meet the needs of our family. So that to me right there was success, because I really wanted to be there for her and with her.
Yeah. And I think that, like you said, that's the most common answer we get to this question, is that the goals change over time.
Yeah.
And a lot of times, like, you'll have a certain goal, you reach it, and then you're like, okay, that was great. Now what's my next one? So that's the most common answer. And I think that's the great thing about this writing, is the flexibility and of being able to change what you're doing and how it can meet different needs. And so it's very cool.
I also want to be a good community member. And I think that's super important to me. I know it's important to Sara. And just to give help where we can give help, and give support where we can give support, and stand up for the things that we believe in and want done, in this community, and that we can support. So that's important. I will say that H. Claire Taylor said, my goal is to make enough money doing this to pay some bills, and make enough money to keep doing this because it's fun. That's my goal. So once I know that, then my marketing plan is to find X number of readers to meet the goal, because I'm not shooting for unlimited money here. I don't think you can find happiness with your goal being, I'm going to make as much money as possible. And Daniel Wilcox said, for me, it's, am I enjoying writing and having some kind of positive impact? So those are two of our guests that we had on, and we hear that a lot. Those two responses, some version of that, we hear a lot. So I think a lot of people in the community have really shifted their mindset from, I got to make all the money, to I want to make money, but I also want to enjoy this, and I want to enjoy my life. And so I think that's important to keep in mind.
Yeah. I think for a while there, we were so excited we could make money with publishing that there was we were a little frantic. And I think now we're pulling back a little bit from that, getting a little more work-life balance, I hope.
Yeah. Hopefully. Yeah. Well, Sara, what do you wish you'd known about writing and craft when you started?
Well, so being a mystery writer, for me, it was all about the plot in the beginning. I had to have the plot down. I had to figure out, because I wanted to give people a good mystery, and I wanted it to be a good puzzle. And over time, I've realized that readers are way more interested in the characters, especially if you're writing an episodic series. They really want those rich, interesting characters, and they want the good plot, but they want the characters too. And I think it's the characters that that pull people back again and again. And so I've had to kind of let go. I still want to have a good plot, but I want to really have great characters now. And that's what I didn't understand about writing mysteries, especially in the beginning. And part of that too is there's so much to learn that, sometimes you learn it in stages. So I figured out how to do the mystery plot, and my characters were okay. But I feel like as I'm going on, I'm deepening the characters now, and I'm more interested in how they're going to change and grow over a series.
Yeah.
So what about you?
Well, when I started, I didn't know anything. And so I read Writing Romance for Dummies. So pretty much I knew everything after I had read that book. Actually, I did read that book, and it was pretty good given what I know today, but I didn't know everything. And I'm sort of like you, I was really hung up on, does this story make sense? Does this plot make sense? And what I know now is that readers just want a compelling story, especially in romance. I mean, you just need to hit those, as Theodore Taylor says, those butter buttons, that really ignite their energy and their emotions and things like that.
People just can't get enough of it, right?
Yeah, they just become addicted to it. So I think that again, you need a well-crafted story. I mean, it needs to make sense. You don't, if you have plot holes, you should fill them. But you really need to also make sure that your characters and your environment and the things that are happening are compelling to your readers and giving them what they want. And, we talk a lot on the podcast about genre expectations and reader expectations. And for romance in particular, it is that meeting those emotional needs of your reader and really hitting all those buttons if you can, and if you're comfortable doing that. So and then I also wish I had known about the crappy first draft and just accepted that. Like, I'd heard it, but I thought I would be that person that didn't have one. And that, of course, never happens. And so, just kind of accepting you're going to have that crappy first draft and being okay with that.
Yeah. And for me, like, there was a while where I went and I tried to do just get it down on paper. It doesn't matter how messy it is, just keep pressing forward. And for me, I'm a slower writer and have to think a little bit more. And so I've learned over time that it's okay if I take a little extra time in the writing. And maybe my first draft isn't super crappy, but I mean, it's certainly not polished and beautiful.
Yeah.
But I do need to slow down a little bit more. Some people, they do better, like sprinting, and I do better at like a walking pace, I guess. I'm moving, but I'm not going very fast. So you got to figure out what works for you as far as drafting.
Exactly. Yeah. So what have our guests said about what they wish they'd known about writing and craft, Sarah?
Okay, so we had Deb Clopton on, and she said, if any editors try to change your voice, don't let them. So that takes a while to come to that point where your voice and you're very comfortable with it, but that's great advice. And then we had Becca Syme on. We've had her a couple of times. And I think this was the first time she was on. I can't remember exactly.
Probably.
But she said, writing what you love is way more profitable than trying to write something that someone says is selling. When I get to write what I love, then readers respond so much better. I wish I hadn't gone market and trend chasing. So that's very good advice. And a lot of us, we go off and then we come back to that.
Yeah, I think that happens a lot, especially maybe not as much now, but over the last, 4 or 5 years, where there were a lot of trends and you can write really fast and get a lot of books out, and then you can hit these trends really fast. But, and
then ride that wave for just a little bit until it bottoms out. Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with that. But if you're not that kind of writer, then that can be really frustrating to try to do that. So,
yeah. Okay. So our next question, marketing. What do you wish you'd known about marketing, Jami?
Well, most of our authors will say, guest authors will say everything when they come on. And I agree with that. I really do think that, there's just so much we don't know. But first of all, your mileage may vary. Like you and I can do the same things and we'll get totally different results. So your mileage may vary. And marketing is more about paid ads. It's covers, it's blurbs in my newsletter and my newsletter swaps and newsletter promos and anything in any way that I can get my books in front of readers. That's marketing. So it's not just the paid ads. It's everything else you do. It's your branding. It's that promise you make to the reader, which is what I say branding is. And if you make the right promise to the right readers and get in front of them, you will gain readers and people will read your book. And then also that marketing is as much about repelling the wrong people as it is about attracting the right people. because we don't want everybody reading our book. We want the right people reading our book. And I think the success I had when my books came out was because of that one very thing. I put my books in front of the exact right people because of information that I had prior to releasing the book, not because I'm so smart, but because I learned that from really smart people. So, yeah. What about you, Sarah?
Yeah, I think that's something that I learned too about, like, you don't really want to appeal to everyone. I thought I wanted to, but then over time I've learned that it's better to focus on a smaller group of readers, because then you can really reach them and speak to them. Though another big thing I've learned about marketing is that not every tactic works for every genre. So this was something that when I first started out, I would hear about somebody doing something. I think, oh, I got to go do that. And I would try everything. And a lot of the things were, mystery readers are quieter. They're more, especially my readers, they're quieter, they're more reserved, and they're probably not as interested in like forming a street team and talking to all their friends about mysteries as maybe somebody who writes YA, a reader of YA, or like urban fantasy. There's just different genres have different almost personalities. And it's not like everybody is the same, but they do have certain tendencies. So like now I think, oh, this is working for this author who is in X genre. Would that work for my people? And I know my readers better. And I know like, oh, they're going to be interested in this. Or no, I'm not even going to go there. There was something that came out the other day. Oh, TikTok. I thought, I'm not going to do TikTok because that's just not really where my readers are. And it's not what I want to do. So it's like, I have to find that match where it's like, I like it, my readers like it, and I will have readers, whatever is, going on, they're going to enjoy it. Right. So that was the big thing.
Yeah. I think to piggyback on top of that is if you don't enjoy it and your readers aren't there, why? I mean, that is energy that you can put someplace else. Yes. You're spending time, you possibly are spending money, but you're spending energy that really could go someplace else. And we all have just a limited amount of energy to go towards this career.
Yeah. And then I had one other small thing that for marketing, I wish that I
love this.
So bad. It's very practical. It's, I wish that I had used, when I set up my newsletter link, you put it everywhere. And then I wish that I had known not to use the link, because I started with MailChimp and they give you a link and I just copied that and pasted that everywhere, the back of my book, my website, everything. And later when I changed to ConvertKit, I had to go find all those places where I'd put that link. Or, you could set up a redirect, I guess, now, if I thought about that. But it's just so much easier to have your own like pretty link that and you can, sararosett.com/sign up. And then you can post that everywhere and it's not hard to say or type. So yes, that's something that I wish I'd done, because it took me quite a while to track down all those links everywhere.
Yeah, that's really smart.
And technology does change. Like sometimes you think, oh, this is going to be perfect and I'll use this forever. And new things come out all the time. And it's always good to have the flexibility to change quickly without spending, hours looking for a certain link somewhere on your website.
Yeah. Super smart. That's a big takeaway, y'all, that y'all can take and practically apply today, because that's a good one. So as I say, we ask all our guests this question. Most of them, their initial response is everything. But Elena Johnson, who's super successful, writes clean cowboy romances and some other things, but she's done so well. She said, I didn't understand the concept of read through. If I'm spending $10 a day on a book one in a series, then I don't look at how much book one earns. I look at the whole series. If the series is making $20 or $30 or $50 a day, then that ad gets to keep going. That's a good ad. That's bringing readers into my series, into my brand, and they're reading through. So they read book one and read through to book two, book three, and to book four. And all of that is income that is generated from the ad to book one. And I think we forget about that, especially when we first start running ads. We're not really thinking about the whole thing. We're hyper focused on that one ad. Is is it doing what we want them to do kind of thing. So I think that's really smart. So Sara, what assumptions did you make at the beginning of your writing career, and looking back, did it turn out to be right or wrong?
Well, so I started traditionally published, and I had a cozy series come out with a traditional publisher, and I wrote 10 books in that series. And my assumption was that the publishing industry would not change. And so like now looking back, I'm like, that was so wrong. So, I mean, it's just like things have just changed so much since I started publishing. My first book came out in 2006. And so, I mean, you think about like ebooks, audiobooks, just the ways that we can reach readers now, the way social media has changed. Like, I mean, it's just incredible. So that was the assumption that I made, and it was very, very, very wrong. So what I do now is I keep an eye on Joanna Penn and the creative Penn, because she always knows what's coming in the future.
Right.
So I
and
think
you're not very futuristic.
No, I'm not. I write historical, so of course I'm not. So that's my big lesson learned there, is like just always keep an eye on what's happening in the future, or people who keep an eye on that for me.
Right.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, I assumed that success would be a straight line. And especially after I started and I was having success, I just thought, and it did do this for quite a while, you know, every release, things got better and I was making more money, and it was more this straight line. But what I know now is it's like this, and then you may actually get to where you're going. But the fact is that it's not a straight line. Things happen. Pandemics happen. You know, your personal situation changes, your business situation changes. You know, the TikTok, who could have ever predicted what TikTok would have done to the romance industry? And frankly, well, all books, but especially romance. And frankly, my books are not a great fit for TikTok, because they're just not they're not steamy enough. Like, I would have told you that my books are about a 3 on the chili pepper scale, you know, of 1 to 5. And according to TikTok, and what they consider steamy, mine don't even, like, I'm still a seedling on a chili pepper seedling.
You're just off the scale on the lower end.
Yeah, exactly. So, you know, who could have predicted that? But but things will come around. I mean, it's all cyclical. I mean, things just, they come and they go, and then they come back and then they go again. And so you just have to be willing to ride that out. And it takes a lot of mental fortitude to do that. And frankly, I mean, I don't know that I have that kind of mental fortitude, but I'm just stubborn enough to stay in and keep going. But sometimes it just doesn't always go. And you can do everything right, and still things don't go your way for now yet. They will.
But things do come back around. Like, people say, oh, so and so genre is not selling, or it's dead. Like the joke is the vampire books are dead, and they're never dead. They always come back around. You know?
Exactly.
So trends come back around, and things do change over time. I would say for our guest, on this question, we have 2 most frequent responses that people thought their books would just sell, like that they would write it, they'd put it out and people would find it, or it'd be an instant bestseller, you know, or the other thing we've heard is that it would get easier. Like, if you write one book and you get that done, then the second book will be easier. And I don't think that's true. And I don't know, I can't think of anybody who said, oh, it just gets easier. I think in a way it gets harder, because you begin to learn more and more about the craft and what you didn't know. And so I would say those are 2 of the main responses we get. And then we've got one quote from Daniel Wilcox. He said, being an indie author was going to be, he thought it was going to be competitive and very dog eat dog. For the most part, I've been pleasantly overwhelmed from the start how friendly people are in groups, chats, and at conferences, and how generous people are with their knowledge. And I think that's so true, that, you know, this industry is very different. It's very cooperative in many ways, especially in the indie community. So that's a very pleasant surprise for most people, I think.
And if you're kind of new and you see the drama going on, you know, on TikTok or even on Facebook or whatever, just step back and know that that is just a small portion of the author community. And I will say from my experience too, I have just never had a bad experience, with another author. I mean, I have authors that I don't love and they don't love me, but it's not, it's not stab you in the back kind of thing.
Yeah.
So, it really is just kind of this community of cooperation, I think, in a lot of ways. Yeah.
Yes.
So the next question is mindset. What kind of change in your mindset and thinking have you had to make over the years, Sara?
I would say this is more related to the last question as well, is that I have to adjust as the industry changes. And I think like I saw that when traditional publishing, when I moved to hybrid and then moved to indie, it was like I had to figure out, okay, if I want to keep doing this, I have to figure out how to do indie publishing. And that was like, that was a huge learning curve. But I mean, I love learning. I'm like a number 3, like in my strength. So I'm fine with that. But, it's like you have to assess what's going on and figure out how you can make it work for you. And I feel like one big change was like going from traditional to indie. And now I feel like we're in a new phase where we have the ability to do more direct sales. And that's something that I'm figuring out. Like I've tried Kickstarter, I'm set up a Shopify store. So I'm trying to figure out how I want to do that, what's going to work best for me. So I think that is the biggest mindset changes I've had to make, is like realizing that it's always going to be changing and I'm always going to have to be adjusting and figuring out what's going to work for me, and not necessarily, just because everybody's doing direct sales doesn't mean I have to do it, or I have to do it the way that most people are. So I'd say that's like the biggest thing for me. So what about you?
Well, I will say first, Sara is, she's a big learner and she just really takes chances and she tries things, even though she'll tell you she's risk averse. She's not in that, but she learns all she can. So the risks are kind of low, but,
I mitigate my risk.
Yes, she does all the things and then tells me what's worth it and what's not, because I'm not number whatever you are learner. I'm much farther down the list. But I would say for me, what I said earlier is that I don't have to make all the money. I just don't have to make all the money. I don't have to be, I am an Amazon top 100 author. My books have launched into the top 100, but I don't have to do that. If it happens, that's fantastic. But if it doesn't happen, that doesn't change how hard I worked on that book. That doesn't necessarily mean my book wasn't received well. And it doesn't mean that that book is going to fail because you can still make money on a book that launches into the top, wherever that book never goes away. You can always make money on it. So just that change of, I don't have to make all the money, is a big one. And then the other thing is that it's not always the right time to level up. Everybody's wanting to level up, but sometimes it's just not the right time. If you've got a kid getting married or graduating, or you're about to have, I went from 1 grandchild to 6 in 2020. So that was not a great time for me to level up. I knew that my time was going to, I was going to my attention was going to be diverted.
Out.
Yes, exactly. Thank you. So it's just, or that like right now, you don't have the money to level up. You would have to go into debt. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. I went into a little debt before when I started, but you just have to weigh things. And if you're willing to take a chance and it's a good calculated chance and you've mitigated your risk, then that's a good, maybe it is time to level up, but it's just not always the right time to level up. And there are some things that I'm not willing to compromise on, and time with my family. Like I said, I don't regret one single word I didn't write during that time I was with my sister. things like that, I'm just not willing to compromise on. And so those are the things that, and not that I would have been a big compromiser when I started, but I did miss some family things or some things I could have done in the beginning because, I had to write, got to write. So,
that's something that I think part of it is after you've been doing this for a while, your mindset, you begin naturally to take your foot off the gas a little bit. Like if you have a couple of books out, you feel like, okay, I've got some backlist now. So then you can kind of ease up a little bit. But I think as an industry, we're all starting to realize how important work-life balance is. And I don't know that any of us have it down very well. I think we're all trying to figure out how to do it better. But I think like taking care of ourselves and maybe not chasing all the things and all the trends is becoming more acceptable. Whereas before it was like hustle, hustle, hustle. You got to go. And now it's like we're all dead. We can't do that anymore.
Right.
Yeah. So let's see. Do you want me to read the guest? Or you want to?
Yeah.
Okay.
No, you go ahead.
So Martha Carr, she talking about mindset, she said, there's a certain place where I'm not willing to work harder in order to make more. I'm happy with what I'm making. It's far more than I ever thought I'd be making. At some point, I quit paying attention to the attitude that some writers have of, here's this massive amount of work I'm doing, and I will be putting out all these books. And she thought, that's not what I want. So basically kind of the same topic. And then Adriana Locke said, my biggest mindset change was to stop comparing each book of mine to the one before. It's an easy trap to fall in, but it makes no sense in the long run. Maybe the book is marathon money and not sprint money. So it's like taking each book as it comes and not saying, oh, this book didn't sell as much as that one, so it's a failure. That each book is its own. It's going to have its own kind of.
Well, it has its own life. It has its own life. Yeah. I mean, and that life it may start out as a baby and has to grow into adulthood where other books start in adulthood, and they just do well right off the bat. So, yeah.
And like Elena Johnson compares some of her books to, like she said, some of them are thoroughbreds and they always win and they always go long distance and do really well. And others, I think she said they were donkeys, like they're there. Maybe not they're making that much money, but they're, plodding along. So it's like each book has its kind of own path or journey. Yes. I don't know if that makes sense, but
yeah, I think so. And so what about, we always ask this question for our guests. This is like our favorite question to ask, but what's the best thing you think you've done to set yourself up for success, Sara?
I think a couple of years ago, I decided to really lean into my newsletter because I really don't like ads. I don't enjoy them. And I was like, the newsletter, I have those people on my list and I can talk to them whenever I need to. So really focusing on doing my newsletter. I shifted from doing it just with new releases to once a month. And now I do pretty much twice a month. And that's about plenty for me. So just building the newsletter, connecting with my people that way. And then writing what I really enjoy, because that's what has helped me find my readers. When I tried to write something, I'm not good at like writing to trend or writing with whatever's hot. If I write what I like, that seems to resonate with people more. So that's been the best thing I've done. So how about you?
Starting a newsletter before I published, that is probably the number one thing that I did to set myself up for success, because I had 1,200 people on that newsletter before the first book came out. So those were 1,200 people that I knew wanted that book, or at least were interested enough to get on my newsletter. And, because the way I had gotten them was through promo, so a preview of that book. And so that was one of the best things I've ever done. And then the second best thing was building relationships within this community. Yeah, by far, just for moral support and for, camaraderie, but also, to have people. Well, I will say this, that and I didn't know she was going to do this, but Lucy Score is one of my friends because we write very similar things. And last year when I was doing nothing and, no running ads, not, just being with my sister, she put my book in her newsletter. And she doesn't do that. She doesn't put people's books, but she had read this particular book, so she put it in there. I call it my Lucy bub. I mean, that carried me through pretty much the end of the year. I mean, I had read through for about 2.5, 3 months. And I mean, I was still doing okay, but that took me to a level that I could really not have to worry about anything until after the first of the year. And I mean, had I not had that relationship, I mean, she didn't have to do it. And I have a lot of relationships and they didn't do it. But the fact that she did is only because I've built a relationship with her and other rom-com authors. And the fact that she's an amazing person. I can't, I have to say that because gosh. But yeah, building relationships is just huge. And it will help you. It just gives you somebody to vent with, to create with, to brainstorm with, all of the things.
Yeah.
So,
and you can check in with your, like if you have, especially people that start like at the same time as you, that's so powerful because like you're going through a lot of the same things together and you can check in with each other and be like, okay, this is what I'm thinking about translations now. Has anybody done that? And you can kind of network and research and kind of help each other. And then just the knowing that because writing can be very solitary, in our families, they love us, but they're not really that interested in like the title or, like, should I use this word or how, so having writer friends.
Listen to this turn of phrase. Yeah. They don't care. They don't care.
They love us, but they don't really want to know about the details of that stuff.
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah.
So our guest, this is what they said. Becca Syme said, I would get connected as quickly as possible with a community of supportive people because you can get through an awful lot when you have people who support you, and there will be stuff to get through. And that is true. Every month on the 15th, if you're in KU, there's stuff to get through, so you need people. Jamie Davis said, get my wife to buy into this. She's never doubted me, and I know how lucky I am. And if you have a spouse that's not supportive, you know how important that is. So I really love that. And then finally, Mal Cooper said, I suppose at the root of it all, the best thing I ever did for myself was reading a lot of books in the genre I write in. I credit my ability to tell a good story to all of that content I consumed.
Yeah.
And
yeah, I think this is the one, this question has the most variety of answers.
Yeah,
like we're never sure what people are going to say, and it's always interesting. So, that's why we like to ask it, because we're always surprised.
And that's all we have. So if you guys have questions, we would love to answer them.
Yeah, we do have some questions. I'm just going to scroll up to where the questions started. That was fantastic. So thank you both.
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Glad to do it.
I listened to the show, so it was weird to have you both there.
In your head, in your ears.
What's happening? They're there. Okay, so Carolyn asked, do you do all the admin work yourself, or do you have an assistant or assistants who help you with that?
Okay, so
I do most of it myself right now. I have had assistants that I've hired on a project by project basis. For the podcast, we have an assistant, thank God, because if not, y'all would have gotten about 5 episodes and that's it. So yeah, I mean, we wouldn't know where we were without Adriel, thank goodness.
Yeah. We had a thing where I was like, oh no, I'm going to have to upload this week. It's been a while since we've had to do that. So thank goodness we have her. I work with Adriel, helps me a lot with love. She's the VA for the podcast, but then she's also my VA, and she just helps me with so many things. We were talking about something and I said, what do you not help me with? I mean, I do a lot of things on my own. Like I do my own newsletter. I do a lot of my graphics and stuff, but there's always something that I'm like, Adriel, can you one thing she does for me that I didn't even think about. She suggested doing this for me. She said, I was talking about the contracts, like keeping up with contracts and stuff. And she said, well, I can scan those and create a document with them, so you can have a reference and they'll all be in one place. And I was like, yes, please. So now, like, I send her things, she scans them. They're all in a Google Doc, so a spreadsheet, so I can see where they are. And she does a lot of things like that. She's really good at data, like organizing things. And a lot of times I'll have a project and I'll say, okay, like when I did a Kickstarter, I was like, okay, I'm going to do a Kickstarter. Can you help me with these 5 things, related to it? And a lot of times it's like connecting with people and helping them, like helping me coordinate with other people and get things together.
Mm-hmm. When I put my books on Ingram, I had a VA do, an assistant do that, because frankly, I didn't want any part of that. So
yeah, I still do my uploads and stuff like for the stores, but some people outsource that too to somebody else. But I kind of like to keep an eye on that.
Yeah. Awesome. And then we have a question. So do you recommend any resources to learn about direct sales?
Our podcast. I mean, I'm not kidding, because
it's come up so much.
In fact, it's come up so much, we're having to spread interviews out, because if not, we'll have 3 or 4 interviews with all about direct sales. So, but there are other resources. Sara, you talk, because she's done it. I haven't. So
I would say if you're interested in more about Shopify, look at Morgana Best's class. She has a course and she has a book too. And I think that's called her book is called Stop Making Others Rich. And
love that.
Then if you don't know if Shopify is for you, then check out Russell and Monica Leonel. They have a thing called the Author Ecosystem. And that is like helps you figure out how to do direct sales. And that's more of you create a sales page, or like you do a Kickstarter to kind of test things. So definitely check those 2 out. Those would be my top 2 recommendations.
Nice. Ingrid asked, how do you go about promoting your first book, and how long did it take you to get noticed as indie authors?
All right, Jami, do you want to take that? Because you had how you planned before.
Yeah, I planned before because the way I even kind of got into this community was I put a book out under a different name, a co-written book, in 2015, and you put it out and you go, okay, who's going to buy our books? And of course nobody does, because they don't know about it. I mean, some family, some friends, but that's about it. And my quest to find visibility is what got me into this community. And so I knew I had my book ready, except for editing, but I could have done that. I could have worked out a way to get that done, but I waited a year to publish because I wanted to learn this business. And so having the newsletter beforehand was, unbelievably helpful. Making relationships with people and becoming a person in a group that was known as not a doodlehead. I'll say that. Just somebody that's a nice person in a group, that's helpful or encouraging or whatever. Being in groups like that, instead of going in and being a know-it-all or being critical of people who are just trying to do the thing. So that just gave me time to get everything set up. So when it came time, when I launched my first book, I had newsletter swaps set up for 9 days after the book came out, because of relationships that I had made, or because of reputation that I was, a reliable person or a nice person or whatever. And so those sorts of things. And my first book launched to 1,300 in the store on day one, and went lower than that for a while, but it stayed in the top 3,000 for several months, stayed in the top 5,000 for more than a year. And all of my books just launched better than the first one because of that. But I had everything set up in the beginning. If you haven't done that, it's not too late. You just have to kind of maybe pull back and look at things a little bit more strategically. The best way to, in my opinion, to start a newsletter before you launch is to write a short story or a novella and do the newsletter promos that you see on Book Funnel or Prolific Works or things like that, because those are genre specific sort of promos, and you can get people who read what you write in onto your list, and then you start emailing them immediately. And like for me, when I got those 1,200 people on, I started emailing immediately. The book didn't come out for 6 more weeks, but I emailed them this funny story about how I didn't know it, but I had put on a pair of my daughter's pants. We have the same pants, and they were 5 sizes too small. And I kept thinking, how did I gain so much weight in a week? Because I had worn my pants the week before, and it was this whole thing. And then I realized I had on her pants. And so it's this hysterical, crazy story, but that's what they were going to get from me and my books. So that was my brand. That's the promise I make my readers, and I deliver on that promise every chance I get. So start emailing them as soon as you get people on the list, and start delivering on your promise.
Yeah. And so for me, because I had come from traditional publishing, I did have an audience, but they weren't used to, I started with a new series. And so it was kind of like starting over, but I did have my newsletter list. So I leaned into that. But then the other thing I did to help get reviews was I did giveaways on Goodreads and Library Thing. And I think Goodreads now you have to pay for. I think Library Thing is still free, and you can give away ebooks there. And that helped get some reviews and get some comments going. So I'd recommend doing stuff like that. And then the swaps are like no cost. So if you don't have a lot of money, you can swap, and that can help. So yeah, I would say, and then recently when I started the historical, I decided to really lean into getting reviews. So I would have like professional reviews. So like I submitted my book to Readsy, a couple of other places. It's a historical novel. So I joined the Historical Novel Society, and they'll do reviews. So I did things like that. So I could put that in the editorial section on the different retailers. And that really, it's not, I don't know that makes it successful but then that gives readers, look, somebody else reviewed this, and it's not just reader reviews. So I did that with the launch of the new series, and I think that was helpful.
Great stuff. Rachel asked, how much time at this point in your writing career do you both spend learning the craft of writing?
Oh my goodness. Are we talking like watching TV and movies and analyzing stories and stuff?
Yeah, I mean, how do you do it? That still counts, right?
Now that more time than we should. But
yeah. Well, I love to take courses, and so I would say I probably spend more time writing and less time. I spend probably, like, if you divided it up, it would probably be like 30 to 40% writing, and then the remainder like split between learning and admin, because I'm surprised at like the more books you get, the more stuff there is to do, and the more email there is. So yeah, I think admin's taking up a lot more time, but I'm always thinking about story. I'm always trying to unlock why I like something or why I enjoyed something. So I think that's always kind of running in the back of my mind.
Yeah. And I don't math, so I can't tell you percentage, but I do say I'm like Sara. I am constantly thinking about story. If I see something on YouTube or something like that, I will watch that. I'm not really high learner, so I don't want to take a course. I'm not going to take a course, but I will watch YouTube, and I will, like I did just listen to Save the Cat Writes a Novel. It was so good. And I took tons of notes, and then I bought the book, and then, so I do still try to figure out how to write a better story, but I think that it's less than admin and actual writing when I'm writing.
Yeah.
Good point. And then Rachel also asked, I think this is in regards to newsletter swaps. What tools are you using? Story Origin versus Book Funnel? What would you recommend?
For swaps, I think you do, or promos.
The promos, sorry, not swaps.
Promos. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. I've never used a Story Origin promo, but I can say the Book Funnel promos are great. So
yeah, I've used Book Funnel, and then there's another Ryan Z. What is his?
Yeah, he does genre specific kind of
genre
things.
specific promotions that you can sign up for. So
Yeah.
I've used that as well. But
me too.
Yeah. So, and I don't know that it specifically matters what site you use, but just as long as you can kind of get in there and start building an audience.
Right. Right. And that it is genre specific, you know, the temptation again is to get your book because everybody would love my book. Well, you know, the fact is everybody might love your book. Everybody might love my book, but are they going to go ahead and read the rest of your books? Probably not, unless they are genre specific readers. You know, because I have had people that don't read romantic comedy that have read my first book and they just love it. They talk about it all the time. They have not gone on and read other books in my series. So, you know, I love that. I appreciate them reading it, but I want genre readers. I want romantic comedy, romance readers on my list.
Yeah.
Because if you're not going to pull your weight and buy my books, I don't want you on my list. And that sounds kind of mercenary. Yeah, that sounds kind of mercenary, but that is the truth because I have to pay for you. So, you know, I want you to do your part too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you obviously, you did mention swaps earlier, Jamie, and the importance of the swap of building relationships with other authors.
And getting in or creating your own genre specific author group on Facebook. Like if you're in that, there are lots of them. I mean, like there's Sweet and Clean Romance. There are rom-com author Facebook groups. There are just romance Facebook groups. There are science fiction author Facebook groups. Getting in those, not just asking for things, being a productive, helpful member of that community. And then, you know, if they say, hey, we've got swaps coming up, does anybody want to swap? Then you can jump in or you can ask. Just don't go in taking. Be a giver too.
Yeah.
Brilliant point. Amy asked, she's wondering whether you think it's better to self-publish rather than have someone publish for you. So what are your thoughts on that?
100%. I mean, like I've drank the Kool-Aid. I'm going to be on the float if there's ever a parade. I am 100% always for indie publishing. I understand there are situations and places and times when you wouldn't. You know, I actually have a book now that I'm working on, thinking about. It's Terms of Endearment. If Terms of Endearment and Steel Magnolias had a baby and then let that baby watch a lot of Dukes of Hazzard, then that would be this book. I don't know that that's a great book for me to indie publish because it's, you know, it might be a book I want to shop. And then, but if I did that, I'd have to be committing to writing other books like that. I don't know. But so there are maybe some books you would want to shop to traditional publishers. But for me personally, the freedom, the money, frankly, the authenticity that you can bring to your author career that sometimes you can't with a traditional publisher because they're calling the shots. The transparency that comes with indie publishing for me outweighs the validation I might get if I went with a traditional publisher.
Yeah. And having done the traditional for 10 books, and now I've done more than that indie, it's for me, and I think each person has to decide on their own, because for certain people don't want to mess with the cover and the blurb, and they just want to hand that off and go. But the thing with that, you can't completely hand everything off because they want you to be involved in the marketing and the publicity. And so when I was traditionally published, I would spend about 6 months writing, 6 to 7 months writing the book. And then I'd spend 3 to 4 months or more marketing the book, because you just got that one shot to make it. And if you don't earn out, then it's very hard to get another contract. And so for me, just knowing that I'm in control and I have the freedom to apply for a book club if I want, I have the freedom to lower my prices if I want, I have the freedom to change my cover. I mean, to me, that's what draws me to indie. And I mean, there may be someday I go back and, like shop a book, like you were saying, to see if anybody's interested in it. But for me, I prefer to know what I'm doing and to be in control of it. So for me, that's why I enjoy it. But I think you have to, like, if you don't want to, and there is a cost when you indie publish, you have to pay for your cover and your editing. So, you kind of got to balance and figure out what you want the most, what's most valuable to you.
Yeah. If just having that book on your shelf, in print in your hand is what you want, and you don't know that you're going to do just a ton of other books later or whatever. Yeah. Go with go with a small press or a big traditional publisher if you want to. I think you just have to be strategic. You need to know why. Why are you going with a traditional publisher?
Whichever way you go.
Why are you going indie? And so just knowing that why, what's most important to you, as we talked about earlier, what's your definition of success? So knowing that is important.
Yeah.
So, and I'm not poo-pooing all traditionally published. I mean, sure. If I could get a deal like some of the authors have gotten with Bloom Books where it's print only and I could keep all my other rights, man, I'd be over that. I would run over people to get to that deal. But most deals are not like that.
Yeah, that's a very unusual.
That's pretty unusual. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think you raised a good point there that it doesn't have to be once you're indie, you're only.
No, not at all. Yeah, not at all.
So most people see it as a binary thing, and it doesn't. Yeah, awesome. Okay, so that almost brings us to the top of the hour. So I am going to say thank you to Jami and Sara for coming in and speaking to you. I hope everyone got loads out of this. I certainly did. And for anyone who doesn't know, we host a ton of these free guest speaker events in the community. You can sign up to as many as you want. If you want some more in-depth learning and courses and all that sort of thing, you can sign up for Fictionary Live with your annual Fictionary subscription. And with that, you'll get access to all of our guided editing courses as well. So thank you again to Jami and Sara. That was fantastic. The rest of you, I will see at the next event. And if Jami and Sara, you won't mind hanging back for just 2 minutes, we will.
Sure. And let me just say, if we didn't get to all your questions or you have other questions, you can reach us both on our websites, jamialbright.com and SaraRosett.com.
And we have an email too.
Oh, yeah, we do have an email for the podcast. It's new. We've only been doing this almost 3 years. Wish I'd known them for writers @gmail.com. You can email
us your questions. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, thank you, everyone. And I will see you next time.
Bye.
Bye.